Okay, so now we'll go, this is Eddie.
Hello, everybody.
Eddie has
Thank you.
looks like he's making something here, so we'll let him talk.
It's something for sure. Thank you. Yeah, my name's Eddie. 22 years old. I've been making guitars for about 3 years now. I like to say I'm a woodworker. My dad and my grandfather are both woodworkers. My grandfather was a woodworker back in Mexico. We had a shop. We had about 20,000 square feet of shop. I was there, my father worked with him, and then I started working with him. We had, beds, closets, big stuff like that. And then one day, I really liked going with my dad to my grandfather's workshop, and so I was like, let's start working with little stuff. You're a young kid, you see big machines, you get scared. You ask your dad, it's like, can I try that? And then yeah, and so I really liked going with him. Then my father opened his own carpentry. We had a carpentry right beside our house back in Mexico. We had a couple tools, had a planer, joiner, everything in between. And so we would spend most of our days there when we were not in school. I really liked going there. He taught me and my brother how to use everything, nail guns. The planer we would run by ourselves. We were 7, 8 years old. We used to collect the sawdust, put it in sacks, go sell it, and get a bottle of Coke, some chips, just for that money. But that's where it started all from. Now recently we moved. Well, not recently. We've been here for about 10 years now in the United States. We started with a little shop. I still have a little bandsaw. It's a little 10-inch bandsaw that I do everything in. Most of the things I do make are hand tools. So your hand planes, your gouges, your hand saws. All of this has been pretty nice to make. It's nice seeing something come out of your hands compared to, I'm not saying using power tools is bad. I use power tools. It's just not not in a professional setting. So it's mostly just trying to stay away from like doing anything, staying inside all day or something like that. Most of the things I do buy are going to be the wood. Apart from that, everything that I do, like I said, is by hand. Most of these are going to be, I built right about 4 guitars. I've sold 2 for like $200. It's something just to get started, getting more tools, more adequate tools for the job. There are plenty of tools for woodworking. My dad has everything in between as well here in the United States. Yeah, everything that I have built is handmade. So that's enough of me. Let's get into the presentation. So like I said, I do both electric and acoustic guitars. I like doing more the acoustics simply because I feel like they look cooler. They're better in my opinion. But every once in a while, I'll step away from the acoustic world and then finish up a quick electric just to kind of mix things up. So far, I've done about 3 electrics. And like I said, 4 acoustics. The electrics, I really like as well, but that's a separate world. So let's get started. For an acoustic guitar, in my opinion, there's plenty of people out there that are going to tell you that the wood really matters. But in my opinion, the wood on an electric doesn't really matter because it all depends on the electronics that you put in. You can put potentiometers, 250,000 potentiometers in the guitar and you're going to sound warmer. You can put 500,000 potentiometers in the guitar and it'll sound brighter. And all different kind of picks up in the guitar. For example, this guy's got a lipstick and just a regular P9 humbucker. You can put P90s. You can put all sorts of pickups on the guitar and it's going to sound different. That's why, in my opinion, the wood doesn't really matter. As long as it looks nice and it plays good, doesn't matter what wood it is, in my opinion, electric. You can change the parts all that you want. However, some woods that are typically used on electrics are going to be your mahogany, your flame maple, just because of the looks and the weight. Some guitars, like the Gibson Les Paul, they're pretty heavy. I don't know how many people here have held a Gibson Les Paul. They're about 10 pounds. And gigging with one of them, they're not fun. They really get to your shoulder. They're small, they're bulky, and they're heavy. That's why a lot of people tend to use mahogany for heavy guitars, for the body. And then they just put a cap, just about 1/4-inch cap on top. Let it be burl maple, flame maple, anything that's got a pretty nice figure in it. And then they just tend to go and dye it. For the necks, a lot of people use maple simply because it's light, it's strong, and you can get some real nice, pretty grain on it. And like I said, the electrics, you can do a whole slab of wood. You can do multiple pieces. For example, in this guy right here, I couldn't find any, you would call it 2-inch wood, 8/4 wood. So I had to use 15/16 laminated. So it's 4 pieces in total and joined down at the middle. So to be able to get that thickness, but you can do absolutely one piece. However, I found that making one piece body guitars, they do tend to cup, simply because that's how the wood is. So that's why I really like making them out of multiple pieces. You can put the grain in different directions, and that prevents it from actually cupping or doing anything funky. Which is not desirable in the guitar. It is an instrument that has to be pretty precise, pretty accurate, reliable, and it's something that you need to make not do anything in the weather, the temperature, the moisture, anything like that really tends to mess with the guitar, even if it's just a little bit. That's why a lot of people, when they do get a guitar, they usually have climate control cases or have it in climate control places as well. A lot of these guitars are going to have hollow bodies simply because of the weight reduction. They do tend to make them out of alder and ash, which is a little bit heavy as well. But like I said here, you don't need many tools, much experience for an electric guitar. You can get multiple templates online. They're everywhere. You can get Gibson, Fender, Dan Electro, anything like that online. It's just something to help you be precise, because these instruments, since they are instruments, they gotta be pretty precise in terms of how you put on the bridge, where to put the bridge, how many frets you have, the scale length, which means how many frets, how long the fretboard is, stuff like that. But you don't need much experience. For example, this guy right here, I actually made in my apartment room. One day, I was bored and I was like, might as well just do something and start a guitar there. So as you can see here, I had glue up all the pieces of walnut in my apartment. As you can see there, my coping saw. I spent about 2 hours trying to cut that body out. All of this has come from Rockler. I'm sure y'all know the canary wood. I found a blank of about 1 16 inches. Had to plane it down. I do have a bigger guy than this, so don't think I did it with this guy. So as you can see there, I also cut the neck out of a 1/4 inch thick piece of canary wood. So you can see my coping saw there. You can see my templates here. Now the templates really help me try to be as precise as possible. I have built one before, a Telecaster. That thing, it was okay. It was the first electric I had built. I sold it for $150 just to get something out of it. But it was pretty similar to this. Now, the only difference with this is, like I said, I did it in my apartment. It took me about 4 months to finish, simply because all I was doing was hand tools. A lot of these parts also had to get ordered You can go to Guitar Center or other music shops, but they don't have what I really liked. For these guys, I usually tend to play a little bit of jazz, a little more mellow music. So I was really looking for potentiometers that were a little more mellow, so 250, or the range I was looking at, a little more mellow pickups as well. And all of that does matter. But as you can see here, this piece is actually the fretboard that I have on here. It's a piece of curly walnut that I found. It's not something you find often. So I was like, you know what? I really like that. So I used that. I milled it down with a Japanese handsaw, a pull saw. So it did take me quite a bit. Now I don't have a lot of my tools that I use here. Most of the ones I'm gonna have are those guys right there. But going back to the making of an electric, there is multiple bodies you can make. You can hollow it out. You can put just about anything, since the body of the electric doesn't really tend to affect anything. In reality, the first electric that was into production was called the log. Yes, sir.
The pickups and the electronics, did you carve those cavities with hand tools?
I did, yes, sir.
Oh, good on you.
I actually found a old Stanley hand drill with the 3 chuck, and I was there sitting with a 1/2 inch. That's as big as it takes. A 1/2 inch bit is as big as that hand drill takes. So I was sitting there cutting that out. A chisel, a 1/4 inch chisel that I have is from Home Depot. I had to sharpen the thing about 1,000,000 times trying to get to this thing. The neck as well, with the hand file, the Japanese style hand files. I really like those. I don't know if many of you have tried that. They're really fun to use. They're really useful. But yeah, that's the guitar for itself is pretty nice. Well, I don't have pictures here, and it's pretty hard to see on this guy. But I also did some inlay on here. I don't know if we're able to see it. That was also hand carved, but crushed opal on there, so it kind of shines with the light. What I also did was carved it deep enough to put glow powder under it. So if you shine a UV light or a black light under it, it will glow, which is kind of cool. That I did. That I thought about that. I've seen many people do it on rings and on pens, so I thought might as well implement that, try it out, see how cool it looks, and it looks pretty cool. I have used it outside, and when you come inside, you can kind of see it glow just a little bit, which is kind of cool. But apart from that, the frets, the pickups, the tuning machines, all of that was bought. So all I had to do was just measure, and measure, trying to make everything fit. Lots of measuring, and so that's like I say here. All electronics, you can buy them. The only thing that's limiting the electric guitar is your imagination. You can make them any shapes. There's Flying V's. There's the Mustangs. There's the what else is there? You can get glass flat fiber guitars. They're really light, they're really hollow, and really what's limiting you to making an electric guitar is the body itself. You can put a log, you can put a 2x4, make a guitar. Some people have tried that. You don't even have to put a section of the body in. All you need is a neck, the pickups, a small block right around 5 inches by 5 inches. You can put your pickup there and your bridge, and that's all you need, really. There have been some myths, like I said, about the tone woods and all that good stuff on the electric. But to me, that's just, it doesn't have any effect.
Have you messed with the epoxies? I've seen some of those electric guitars that are pretty shiny. Have you ever thought about doing an epoxy pour over?
Me personally, I don't really like the shiny stuff over guitars. I simply feel like it takes away from the wood. It makes it feel like plastic. You can't really feel. But I do want to try making a burl sort of bowl like some of you do, get some pieces of wood and make like a sort of river table looking guitar, not necessarily on top. I really want to try that, but the epoxy is expensive. And I don't have that kind of money.
Use your rock artist now.
Yeah.
Then it's only expensive, not really.
Yeah. And it's only expensive. But I do want to try that in future. It does look really cool. But that's something to look forward to. But that's all I have for the electric. What I really came here for was to show you my acoustics. This is the second acoustic I built. It's got maple all around. It was what I had on hand. It's got a little bit of a plain maple sides, maple back, maple front. Not really a wood you want to use for a acoustic guitar. So the acoustic guitar generally tends to be made out of the top Sitka spruce. The backs tend to be a hardwood wood, simply because you don't want any vibrations escaping the soundboard of the guitar. It'll make it louder. It'll make it more resonant. Some woods used for a guitar, like I said, are mahogany, rosewood. You can get cedar for the top as well. Spruce, Sitka spruce is really good. It's what a lot of people use. As a matter of fact, all the nice guitars are made of Sitka spruce, especially old growth, simply because they have such more tighter grain on it, and they make for such a more stronger a soundboard and such more resonant. I don't know exactly why it does that, but it does make a difference.
So the tighter the grain, the better.
The better for the top. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it really does make a difference. You could get a cedar top. They also make them on a cedar, but they do sound vastly different. That's where you start getting into the acoustics of the guitars, the tone bars, the type of bracing you put inside. For a flat top guitar, there's two different types of bracing. There's called the X brace and the fan brace. The fan braces usually tend to look like a fan inside of the guitar. The X brace is, like I said, it's just an X inside. There have been people trying to experiment with multiple types of bracing in these past few years, just to kind of get a more vibrant or darker sound, depending on what you want. If you're gonna go with a custom guitar, that's gonna be all decided upon you. Like I said here, the flat top guitar is your typical guitar that you see around. It's your steel string. Everybody uses it in just about any type of music. Then there's the Archtop. The Archtop is generally used in jazz. It's what I really like to play and what I really like to make these guitars out of. Because jazz, I feel like, is a better genre of music. I'm not saying anything else is better than the other, but I typically like jazz more. There's also the gypsy guitar. It's a flat top combined with the arch top. So it's got an arch front panel, but a flat back. So it tends to project a little bit more. And then there's the classic and the flamenco. You know, your nylon guitar, your little baby guitar that everybody gets 10 years old, used to kind of start. Like I said, the Archtop here is mostly for jazz. All right, now into the making of the Archtop guitar. I do have molds. I do have all sorts of templates for these guys. It's not just out of my head. It would be nice if they were out of my head, but this guy, as a matter of fact, is a close resemblance to a Gibson L5. This guy right here is a reproduction of the templates for an L5. So that's where that's getting at. Now, all of these guys, like I said, I do have templates. It has been quite challenging to try to get everything situated. It doesn't have any sort of measurements in the templates themselves. These guys, I did use a bandsaw to cut them out simply because it was going to be faster. I don't have much time when I go back home. I'm in college right now. So when I go home is when I work on this guy right here. I cut him out with a bandsaw. Everything's cut out. what I usually tend to do is be careful, be really careful. These guys need to be really close in tolerances. Now, as you can see, these guys are carved. They're carved tops and carved insides, so they do tend to take a little bit of time. These guys were 1.5 inches thick before I started carving them out, and carving them out does take a little bit of time. As you can see here, this gouge right here is mostly what I use for rough shaping. This singular gouge is what I use. You do need a contouring sort of hand plane, and so I use this guy. This little guy is what I use to do all the shaping. It is a concave sole, so you can get curves out of the bottom. So to do...
Do you put a handle on that?
No, ma'am. That's the whole thing.
Wow.
So it does tend to take a little bit of time. As you can see here, I have them here in my apartment. I have a template for the contour of the guitar. It takes shavings right about that big. So it's a lot of carving, a lot of patience. For the top, it's generally just feeling what you think is nice. Generally, a deeper middle and a shallower bottom is really what you're looking for, simply because it has more space in the middle to make more vibration and be louder. For the fine finishes, for the fine touches of something like this and the inside, as you can see, let's see if it stands. Ah.
I wouldn't trust it.
All right, anyways, as you can see, the inside's a little bit harder to get to, simply because it's such a much tighter radius inside. So I tend to use, I don't know if y'all can see that, this little guy. It's also a concave little hand plane. They're typically used for violins to get those really finer curves. As you can see there, right there, it gives you more control of the carve, and it's really hard to hold even with the handle. It's got this long blade, so I typically just kind of hold it by the blade. But this little guy is the real hero of everything. It's what really gets you your contouring.
How many times did you cut yourself, please?
Not that many, actually. Not that I think about it. So it's just a little tiny guy. I have been looking for a bigger one of these guys, just to kind of get more rough shaping done faster. But so far, no luck. Since they are discontinued hand planes, they're a little tricky to find. And like I was saying, for the sides, as you can see, I have a mold here that I've cut out of 3/4 inch plywood, just to kind of keep the shape of it. I also have a inside portion of that same mold that I used to keep the sides pushed to the sides to keep them in shape. Now for the sides, the first time I did sides, I did with a heat gun and a tube of a steel tube, a round 2-inch steel tube, to heat it up, wet the wood of the sides, and then just kind of bend it. But the problem with that is that it was overheating, and so I have to do it 5 minutes, stop, do 5 minutes again, and it will take a really long time for this guy. But for this guy, I got a violin making iron. It's an iron that stands right about 4 inches tall, and it keeps the constant temperature. And that's really helpful because you want, especially with figure grain, it tends to be really hard to work with. Planing, be it sanding, anything right about, it tends to be real hard to work with. When you start bending it, it gets even more tricky because on the striations of the guitar, of the wood, it tends to crack. So you really want a high temperature and really wet wood to be able to work with it. You also can do, like I did here, Kerfling, it's called to keep the rigidity of the sides. It's what really helps it when you drop it or something like that. It's what really helps it from cracking all the way through. You can also do that on the violin iron. It's really something you have to keep in mind of. It has to fit real tight to the sides of the guitar, not only because it's structural integrity and what's the top and the back are the only things that it's attached to. So as you can see here, well, I don't know if you can, but the only parts that the top is attached to is going to be the kerfling, the tail block, and the neck block. That's all that's attached to. So if you were to accidentally drop it right around here, it usually does tend to crack, but the crack doesn't tend to run all the way through, simply because it's being held together by the kerfling. Now, you can do all sorts of things inside of the guitar. What this guy's missing right now are going to be supports on the sides to keep them from collapsing on themselves over the years. I don't know if it's going to last that long, but it's good to, it's fun to think that maybe in the future somebody's going to find it, or in a pawn shop or something, in a flea market, and they're going to be like, oh, that's cool, and they're going to buy it. And I really like to hope that they do last a long time. Now, for the tops, this is some Sitka spruce that I bought off of a gentleman that lives in Arlington. He makes violin. His name is Ivan Ivanev. I don't know if anybody's heard of him. He makes some real nice violins. You can find him on Facebook. And he goes to Rockler every once in a while. And I asked him if he had any Sitka spruce, any old Sitka spruce. He's like, sure. And so this is where this guy's come from. It's not the tightest grain that you can see, but it's something to get started off of. This is the first time I'm going to be using Sitka spruce for the top. So I wanted something cheap, something that if I mess up, it wouldn't be too bad. Crying about it because it was a block. It was about $60. So it's not something too cheap, too expensive, something that you can get, try out things. And if you mess up, you mess up. It is what it is. Like on this guy, like when I was cleaning it, as you can see, I have cleats in there. Unfortunately, I have cleats because when I was carving it with this guy, I stood up, dropped it, and it cracked it right about there. I don't know if you're able to see that, but it did crack it. So instead of trying to hide them, hide the crack away, hide the cleats, you usually want to make the cleats out of the same wood that the back or front is. But instead of trying to hide them, I made it out of flame maple so that you're able to see the mistakes. It's really something that I like to tend to do with my builds. If there's a mistake, I like to really highlight them because that's how you learn, you know?
So on the middle of that, the thickness in the middle,
Yes, sir?
does that make a difference in your sound?
Yes, absolutely.
So you take less or more?
Yes, sir. A lot of people tend to be, a lot of these guitars tend to be right around the 3/4 inch to 5/8 thickness, simply because anything bigger than that, and when you start putting your bridge on there, it really tends to dip, simply because that's how thin the wood is. And you do want it to be thick, but not too deep, if that makes sense. Because then, yes, sir.
So you carve the top like that, and then you'll scoop out the inside as well.
Yes, sir. So preferably you want to carve out the top to whatever shape, to whatever contour you like. And then what you do next is put a bunch of little holes on the back on the drill press. You make a jig, just a dowel on the bed, so that you're able to get all the little contour of the guitar or the top, and then you just bring your drill press down and you lose it at that thickness. And
So you take out the back?
mhm.
Okay.
Yes, sir. You also carve out the back, like as you can see.
So,
Yes, sir.
so the strength of on a flat top guitar, the strength comes from the bracing.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And on an arch top, it
From the arching. Yes, sir. Just a little bit of the strength of the Archtop also comes from the bracing of the guitar.
Now, your bracing, does that make a difference what it's made out of as far as the sound?
As far as the sound, yes, and also the strength. On an Archtop, you generally, and on a flat top, you do want to make them out of spruce or whatever your top board is made out of, simply because any vibrations, any difference in vibrations may cause the bracings to snap loose. Even if you glue them, even if you nail them, the difference in density, the difference in grain direction, all of that can cause those braces to come loose. So preferably you want to have a straight grain brace and the same sort of wood on the brace. As you can see here, this was just an experiment. I'm gonna pass this around. You can see on the inside there, you can see the braces.
Oh, so you put that hole there so we can see that.
Those
Is that the point?
those holes are typically made on higher-end guitars. They're typically made so that when you're playing, you just don't have the sound projecting towards the audience. You have some of that sound projecting towards you, so you're able to hear what you're playing. And simply because it gives it a lighter tone, a warmer feeling, and it also makes it so that you're, in any chance, compared to the guitar, you're able to clean the inside, because anything on the inside can rattle, and you can definitely hear it in your sound. Now, the weight of an acoustic guitar really does depend on what kind of wood you use and the thicknesses of it. On that specific guitar, I made the end blocks a little too big, and it's a little heavy for an acoustic guitar. But on this guy, as you can see, I went ahead and made the tail block just a little bit slimmer, and the headstock block is just going to be just enough to put a dovetail in it, just to hold the neck in place, because that also tends to go into your sound. Thicker, denser material tends to not have as much resonance to the guitar. The top, especially if you make it too thick, it's just not going to vibrate enough, and you're not going to have enough loudness, I guess you could call it, and it really tends to hurt your sound. But making it is a really fun process. The neck here, there's a bunch of different ways you can make a neck. Right now I'm experimenting with multi-laminate necks. So I'm gonna pass them around too. I have a couple strips of veneer down the middle. I have 2 pieces of ambrosia maple on the sides as the wings. So it's something to give it a little bit of prettiness, I guess. A lot of people tend to say that the main part of the guitar, the main focus point, is going to be the body. But what's the point in making a beautiful neck and you're just going to hide away the neck compared to the body? So I really like to put 100% in everything. Really try to bring out everything out of the wood. Try to do different things for every single guitar. It's not something that I have done twice as of right now. The neck usually tends to be, on most of the guitars, it's going to be one piece. It's going to be carved out of a block. On something like that, you have to do a scarf joint. Usually right about 9-10 degrees is the limit at which you want to make a scarf joint. Now my scarf joints are not pretty at all. What I use is a bandsaw and then just a regular hand plane. I try to get them as line as possible, but they're not as pretty as I would want them to be. But there's something, it'll hold. I tried it with the scrap piece, and then made a neck, a full-on neck out of a scrap piece of maple. And I stood on it, banged it on the ground, did all sorts of stuff to it. And so far it hasn't broken.
Eddie, why is there a line in the middle of the
Oh, so that's going to be for the truss rod. That's going to be your adjustment for the neck. In any case you do have colder temperatures and then go inside and it's warm, the neck tends to do funky things. That's just simply how that works. So you put a truss rod inside to keep the straightness of it. There's a nut on one side of the truss rod, so you can twist them one way. It'll bow it one way. You twist it the other way, and it, of course, bows it the other way. So you don't have any string buzz or any of those sorts. I put here, this guy had a truss rod on there. So, as you can see here, this guy's got the truss rod there. So that little guy is a different style. A lot of them are gonna have them right up here with the little truss rod cover.
Like
A little wheel.
yeah.
Yes, ma'am?
Oh, gotcha. Cool.
A lot of them are gonna have them over here, but they have a nut. So you need a really long Allen key. And it's a weird measurement. It's like 9/32 of an Allen key. So they really made them specifically for that. This guy's, I really liked it because you can put it at the end and you have adjustments anywhere you can. But that's what the middle cavity is for. So you have adjustment on your neck. If you go into different climate temperatures, outside or inside, you have adjustments on the go. So that's what that's for. People do put carbon fiber rods in it just to give it a little more strength. Yeah. You are
Hand carved the neck on the acoustic one?
Yes, sir.
That's,
Yeah. Yeah. All that is a Japanese hand file. So that whole neck is of course it's laminated, but it's a one solid block, and all that's going to be hand carved with a chisel. That same chisel that I use to carve out this, it's the same chisel. It's a trusty chisel, but it does need to get sharpened a lot of times. And for the fretboard, it's just simple stuff. The fretboard, I tend to think that it doesn't really affect the sound, but it generally does. That's just what I think, because most of the sound is going to come from the body anyways. The strings, the type of string also matters, how loud, how warm, how punchy your guitar is. For example, on a jazz guitar, you usually want to put heavy gauge strings to really give it that mellow sound that everybody loves. And on an electric guitar, you want to put some really light gauge strings so you can do some crazy stuff, some bends, some just about anything on a light gauge. But apart from that, that's really all I have. I don't know if that was very informational. I try to give a good explanation of what I tend to do. All of this is just by myself. A lot of YouTube Academy and a bunch of that stuff. There's a bunch of people that I really like to watch, and I really try to. Yes, sir.
How many hours do you think you put into a guitar? First one a lot, second one.
Yeah, it generally depends on what I'm building. Something like this generally took me right about combined hours, 50, 60 hours. Something like an acoustic guitar, just on the back and just on the carving on the back, I have about 6 hours just on the carving. So right now on the acoustic with the neck, everything included, I have right about, I'd probably say 25, 30. And I'm probably halfway done. I'm not even done with the top, carving the back or the top. So it does take a little bit of time, especially hand carving it. It's really the time consuming part of these types of guitar. But yeah, apart from that, that's all I have. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Having y'all here.